Hey guys, I'm Jayant. I am currently working as a product manager with Flipkart. I graduated from Ahmedabad as a MBA in 2021. Previous to that, I used to work as a user experience designer with D Shop, and I did my bachelor's in design from IIT Guwahati. Since I am a bachelor's in design and I also worked as a UX designer previously. One of the topic which is very close to my heart is design thinking and performing heuristic evaluation on our designs. So I'll cover those topics for this session. First of all, majorly design thinking is a six-step process where we empathize with the customers, we define the problem statement, we ideate over what could be the solutions, then we prototype the solutions, then we test those solutions with the users, and then we implement them. And this is not a linear process. It is a very agile process which would where any step you can go to a previous step and you can come back. So there is no set guidelines that you need to proceed with in a defined way. Now what we'll do is we'll cover each of these steps and see what we can do as a product manager in each of these six steps of design thinking. So firstly, where we say empathize. So by empathize, we mean that we need to understand the context of the problem. So for that, we might need to do the secondary research through books, journals, databases, or annual reports. And we also need to empathize with the customers to identify what are their pain points, what are their goals, what are their needs, for which we generally do user research and through various modes like focus group discussions, surveys, interviews, ethnographic research, where we observe how the customers are interacting with the things which are there around. Next, we try to note down what are the common themes which are emerging, and we try to club them together. This is something which we called as affinity diagramming, where we try to while we are doing primary and secondary research, we write down small things on what are the major factors, what are the problems which the customer are facing, what are the reason of those problems, and then we try to group them to identify what are the broad level themes on which we need to work on. Now, when we come to the design phase, when we have already empathized with the user, we need to identify that how many users are actually we solving for. So for that, we need to create user segments on the basis of some criteria or some variables which we define. So for example, a customer who is price oriented in the above diagram, we will push those personas together versus the ones who are service oriented. So when the customer is service oriented, he might pay us extra for some services if we provide them if we provide to him as soon as possible. But if a customer is price oriented, he would want to get those services, but it is not on an urgency manner. He would compare those services among different competitors and choose very wisely. So that's how we on certain variables which we identify through our previous studies, we segment the users into different cohorts. For each cohort, we should do a empathy mapping where we try to identify what is the person seeing in his environment, what is he thinking and feeling, what is he hearing from the people around him, what he's saying that he's doing, but actually what he's doing. So many times we see that there's a very big difference between what customer says and what customer actually does. So these things we need to identify for each customer persona. We also need to identify what are the major pain points of the customer persona and what are the goals they are aiming to achieve. so for each persona, we can then concise the empathy mapping and put those at a place, so that whenever in future we want to identify that what we were actually solving for or who we were actually solving for, we have a place to come back to again whenever we are working on solution or whenever we are interacting with the user. Now, for each persona, we need to define what his experience is. And when we talk about experience map, the experience which we are saying is not only while using the service, it's also pre-using the service and post-using the service. For example, let's take an example of Swiggy. Pre-using the service would be the customer feels that he is hungry. Now, what are the different things the customer would be doing? Then he might open Swiggy. Then when he opens the Swiggy, then the experience map inside the Swiggy will start for the customer. And then after he has ordered something from our app, then there would be something which is post experience. By ordered, here let's include delivery also inside the order only. Let's say the food has been delivered. After the food has been delivered, then there would be certain experience which the customer would be having. Let's say he has some queries regarding the food, then he would want to connect with us again. So those things also our experience map should capture for each customer. So at each stage, what are the goals of the customer, what are the touch points with which the customer will be interacting, what are his thoughts, what is his overall experience, and what are the ideas through which we can improve his experience, is something which we should try to note down in the experience map. Then let's define the problem statement very properly. It should be very metric oriented. So, and it should be as concise and as simple as possible. So, for example, here, company X customer satisfaction ratings are low, and market share has diminished by 10% over the past year, because users don't have adequate tool to perform XYZ tasks that would help them meet their goals of G. Now, how did we come from this problem statement? We knew that market share has decreased and customer satisfaction has decreased. We, through our affinity customer empathy and affinity diagramming, and while creating personas, we identified that customer want to perform XYZ things, but he is not able to perform those to meet their certain goal. So that's how we define a problem statement. It should be very concise, so that when we are working on the solution, we shouldn't drift to any other place. We need to again come back to problem statement and to persona every time to see to it that we don't drift anywhere else. Now let's come to the ideate part, where we start thinking of what are the things which the customer wants and how to solve them for the customer. An ideal way to do is to write the user studies throughout the customer journey, throughout the experience mapping which we had done. So as a type of user, it is a general template here, that as a type of user, I want to achieve some goal so that I can do something. Now, through user mapping, we know what are the things which we need to achieve. Now we try to think as much as solutions as much we can do, and we initially diverge and think as many solutions we can. Then we evaluate those solutions, and then we converge to the solutions which will provide the maximum impact for the problem statement which we were focusing on. Now, to converge to the required solution which we will be working on, we can do some kind of bug analysis, where we write all the alternatives in, let's say, a column, and then we write all the criteria on which these alternatives need to be evaluated on in rows, and then we provide them with a score, and we provide score of each channel, and as per the total score, we see that which of these alternatives will provide the maximum result. Here again, we need to see that total score should be in alignment with the problem statement which we are trying to target. Once we have a list of solutions which we will be going after, we should create a task flow which will be a bit more granular, which will be in about a bit more granular level to see what will be the exact customer journey while he is interacting with our product. And from this task flow, we will try to optimize with the customer's experience so that he can, let's say, have as many fewer number of clicks as possible to complete the user journey. And then we will also try to create some kind of information architecture where we will get what should be the global elements and the navigation pattern through which the customer will interact with the solutions which we are providing to him. So this will help in, it is not always that we are always working on newer solution. It might be that we are adding a feature to an existing product. So having an information architecture will help us identify where all in the existing product should this feature be integrated with, and where all we should be navigating to the user. It should not be that we are increasing the drop-offs of some existing feature by launching this feature. So those things also should be taken into account while creating an information architecture and a customer task flow. One of a good way of creating a customer information architecture is having cart sorting. So once we know that a customer needs to do XYZ things on the app, we define those things, then we group those things. Now, grouping these things can be either done by the customer or it can be done by us also. Generally, it is preferred that we go to the customer, give them the cards, and then we ask them to group them by themselves. If they want to create new cards, they can also create new cards if they want to do open card sorting. In closed card sorting, we don't give the freedom to the customers to create new cards. After customers group the cards, we then try to structure them in a proper way to create a sensible information architecture as per our app or any kind of product. The next is wireframing. Once we have information architecture and user task flow, we can do wireframing. As a product manager, it is fine if we do a wireframing to this level also. Till now, I have mostly interacted with the developers in my team through paper-based wireframing also. So if you are fine with paper-based wireframing, then it is good to go ahead. If your team is not fine with paper-based wireframing, then there are some tools on the web which you can use to create some of these wireframes over the internet. Some of these are Adobe XD, Figma, Balsamiq, and Axure XP. Lastly, we should test all the features which we are building with the users. These tests can be done at a formative evaluation level. Let's say at each step of the design thinking process, we go to the user and do testing with them. That's formative evaluation. Summative evaluation is when we have the final thing in our hand and then we go to the customer to get his inputs. And there is a usability scale. It is a set of 10 questions which it is a standard system which was created. While we interact with the user, we can ask the users to submit this form. As per that form, we can there is again a set framework through which we can calculate the usability of our product. So this is again one of the tools to do usability testing. Lastly, once we have alignment with the users that it is the best product for them, and we have the alignment with the respective business and legal teams also, we can move forward towards implementing, where we interact with the designers, developers, and QA engineers or testers to implement the product. We also do some kind of UAT where we interact with the business team if required to test the product, and we also test the product with some closed set of users to get their feedback and to identify if there are some bugs which we would have missed while implementing. So yeah, so we can maybe in some session we can interact with each other and we can figure out some problem statement and then do a workshop on it. Do reach me out if you guys are interested in doing some live workshop on it. The next topic which I wanted to cover is heuristic evaluation. So it is again a set framework which we can use to evaluate if a particular user interface is up to a certain level and is up to the standards in the industry. So these are the 10 points. I'll cover them one by one. One is visibility of system status, where we are saying that the system should always keep users informed about what is going on through appropriate feedback. For example, here when we are trying to upload certain files on Google Drive, there is a progress bar which shows how much the upload has been. Similarly, if the file has been uploaded, we get a toast message which says that 2 files are being uploaded to my drive. Whenever we load a new page in Gmail, we again have a loading section here. The next is match between the system and the real world. The system should speak the user's language with words, phrases, and similar and concepts familiar to the user rather than system-oriented terms. For example, here bookmark is a term which has been used widely before the internet world for keeping certain pages saved for a longer duration of time in the novels or in the study books. So the same has been adopted by the web browsers, where we can bookmark certain pages to come back to them again in future. In Mac OS, we have a trash icon where if the trash folder is empty, then this icon is empty. If there is something in the trash folder, then we see this kind of graphic where we see that the trash folder is filled and there is some thing in the dustbin. Next is user control and freedom. The users often choose system functions by mistake and will need to clearly mark emergency exits to leave the unwanted state without having to go through the extended dialog. That's why we should always support undo and redo. So very recently, Gmail has introduced this feature where if you, let's say, sent a mail, then it gives a toast. In this toast, you have undo option for a very short period of time. So it is due to that if the user did something by mistake, then he should be able to come back and correct that mistake without going through the whole cycle again. Similarly, in our MS Excel suits, MS suits also, every suit has a redo and undo. Every software has a undo and redo functionality. Consistency and standard. Users should not have to wonder whether different words, situations, and actions mean the same thing. Follow platform conventions. So, for example, here in the MS suite, Microsoft has created a platform convention that all the actions will be on the top taskbar, and there will be different tabs which are grouped in which the actions will be grouped, and this is followed in almost all the softwares of the MS suite. So this is how they are keeping consistency and standards in their softwares. Next is error prevention. So let's say we know that customer might do some certain error at a particular point in user journey. We should try to eliminate those errors instead of making the customer fall in that place, and then he tries to correct himself. So for example, here in the password field, we when the customer has filled the password, as soon as at that time itself, we can show that the password must contain between 6 to 12 letters or numbers. The next is recognition rather than recall. So we need to see to it that we should minimize the cognitive load of the customer throughout the user journey. So we should make the customer recognize that what he wanted to do, instead of making him recall that he needs to do this. So one of the best example of this is the autocomplete functionality in searches, where whenever a customer starts writing something, the autocorrect shows that what he might be searching for. Similarly, whenever someone opens a Google Chrome, Google Chrome shows upfront that these are the things which you browse to very frequently, and it might be that you would open these again. So instead of searching for it, you can directly click here. Next is flexibility and efficiency to use. So now we have two types of users. One are new users and one are advanced users. For our new users, it is good that we have a simplistic user journey for them. But when a user becomes more and more experienced, he would try to use through your system in a faster way. So for example, if we see most of the advanced Excel users, they might not be using keyboard, the mouse to go to the various tabs and performing certain actions. They would just go to the keyboard, and then they remember certain shortcuts, and then they would just use those shortcuts throughout their user journey, instead of going to the home tab and doing and then finding save option. They would just click on Control plus save, so Control plus S. Next is aesthetics and minimalistic design. So show the user what is relevant to him. Remove all the irrelevant things from his user journey. The best thing for that is that example. The best example which I could find for this is the sign in of the Google, where the whole page is empty. Only the focus is only in one place, that you put your email address and your password. Next, let's say a customer did something due to which there is an error in his user journey. It can be either due to our fault also, that our servers are down, or it can be due to something which the customer has done, or let's say the internet is down. Then the error message should be very understandable to the user. They should, by reading the error message, they should be able to diagnose the problem and solve them by themselves. So let's say here we have that we show the error message that poor internet connection detected. Please check your connectivity. And we all should always have a call to action through which the user can either, let's say this page is not accessible to you, go to the home page. So that go to the home page action is there, so that user can exit to a proper place, or he can retry that action to see if the things are working fine now. Next thing is the customer should have an access to help and documentation or frequently asked section in the app, so that before calling the customer support, they can see through themselves that how they can resolve their queries. If they resolve their queries by themselves, it is a boost for them also, that they are intelligent enough to solve them, and they will come back to you only, instead of going to somewhere else where they need to learn from scratch. So retention, help and documentation does help in retention and reducing the cost of your customer support. Yeah, that's all from my side for today. Do reach me out if you want to do some kind of workshop on design thinking, or we can do a workshop on doing heuristic evaluation for certain website or any app.